This is the Undefeated podcast with your host, Keenan Tully. This is the place where we show that hearing loss is not going to be a barrier in your life. You can still chase all of your dreams no matter what. It hasn't stopped me. Don't let it stop you. Let's go. All right, hey, how's it going?
Good. How about yourself, man?
I'm great. Thanks for joining me.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, what's going on?
Today we were supposed to fly plane with some friends, and that didn't happen because the weather was really gnarly. However, it does mean that the track will be nice and moist with the dirt, so I'm excited to go ride my dirt bike in a couple hours. So there you go.
Sweet. Yeah, cool. I've been more of a four-wheeled vehicle guy myself, so I've never really messed around with bikes. I think the one time I tried to ride a dirt bike, I fell off, so I've never I've never messed with them again. So
They're fun, dude. Dirt bikes are really fun. I don't know. I grew up with no power sports, classic European upbringing, and we have access to them now. And dude,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to change anything.
So where are you actually from?
So I was born and raised in Switzerland. My mom is from the Netherlands. She's from
Awesome.
Amsterdam, so we have half the family in Amsterdam, and the other half is in Switzerland. So I always represented the Netherlands, although I have a dual citizenship with Switzerland. So
Yeah, awesome. That's cool.
yeah.
I have a dual citizenship with the US and the UK, so it's quite a nice luxury to have. So, so I think just to get the ball rolling here, let's just give the viewers a bit of a overview about you and who you are and what you're all about, really.
Right. Sure. So my name is Robin Gillon. I go by Bino. I moved to the United States about 5 years ago full time for my skiing career, and prior to that, I was already in and out of the United States in 2011, where I competed in my first World Cup.
Awesome.
I was 17 years old at the time.
Wow.
It was really awesome. It was a dream come true, and yeah, here I am. I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do all along. Skiing has always been my best friend. Basically, it's a way to escape, a way to be my full self.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really call it, skiing kind of saved my life pretty much. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So, where did the nickname Bino come from? Is it a mixture of your first and last name or something like that, or where did
no,
it come
so my coach is my coach for some reason was really into Latin, the language,
from?
and
Okay.
he always thought he was always telling me Robin in the old Latin, old Bible was Bino, and as
Oh,
soon as he
okay.
said it, everyone in the group's like Bino, 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 so I just picked up, and it just became Bino at that point. I like it. It's just unique. I don't know any other Binos. Do you?
No, that's true. No, I don't.
There you
And
go.
I mean, it's pretty cool that you've been able to build kind of your whole brand around that as well. So
Yeah.
everyone now knows you as Bino, which is pretty awesome. So I'm
I,
still trying to find that same kind of nickname for me. I haven't been able to find one yet. I'm sure one will come to me, but not yet.
Spe Speedy McFly.
Well,
You're flying down the tracks. You got to get
yeah,
something that
that's true.
sounds fast.
That's true. That's true.
So,
So,
um,
so what was it about skiing that kind of drew you in then? Was it a similar thing to me with my racing, where I could just kind of throw my helmet on and not really have to worry about trying to speak to people and communicate with people, and I could just kind of throw my helmet on and not have to you know worry
right.
as much and just be in my own world? Was it a similar thing to that?
Sure. I relate to that to a certain extent.
Hmm.
I think I was always drawn to sport. Now, it's kind of a long story, but basically, when I grew up, I did a lot of team sport. My dad
Hmm.
was a big basketball player,
Okay.
and so I played a lot of basketball. I was crazy about ice hockey. I loved ice hockey. the problem with those sports is they're team sport, and as much as I enjoyed the idea of team sport, in reality, the kids were brutal. Um,
Right.
they weren't always super cool. They weren't
Right.
always very understanding and supportive, but that's, I get it. When you're young, you don't understand that. You don't understand why is my teammate not being able to hear me? Like, why do I have to scream at
Mhm.
him for him to hear me?
Mhm.
So I get that part, but basically, I was never a very good player because my ears were not super functional.
Right.
And
Yep.
I just, I remember I felt kind of lonely at times playing ice
Right.
hockey or basketball. And my sister at the time, who's 7 years older than me, she was dating a, I, I thought he was cool. She was dating a cool dude, and he was a skateboarder. And
Okay.
so what happened was one day my sister took me to the skate park, to the local skate park where the boyfriend was skating, and
Mhm.
he just let me try his skateboard for the first time. And I remember the whole skate park environment was completely different than a soccer field, a hockey field, a basketball field. It was
Right.
completely different. Nobody, everyone looked so unique. Everyone looked so different. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
there was a lot of diversity,
Yep.
and um, it felt super welcoming.
Yep.
And so for the first time, I stepped on a skateboard. I'm 7 years old at the time, and I remember everyone around me was being super helpful, and they try to teach me how to skate properly, and then they try to teach me how to do an ollie, which I was obviously super incapable of. It's super hard. Skateboarding is the hardest sport I know. But long
Right.
story short, that environment at a skate park with this kind of spirit, it really made my opened my eyes to wow, like that's cool. Like these guys are really cool looking. They're very understanding, and you don't need to communicate. There's no communication needed. And I guess that was my first impression with the whole like action sport world. And at this point on, I always kind of looked up to that. And as soon as the internet was around, I think I was around 10 years old, I had access to Google. I would just,
Yep.
type in like Tony Hawk, and then it led to Kelly
Yep.
Slater, and then Shaun White, and then all these
Uh-huh.
guys.
Yep.
And I,
Yep.
I was like, wow, like that's what I want to do. That's what I want to become. I want to become someone like that. And
Yep.
I remember always enjoying my weekends and holidays on snow as a snowboarder and skier. I was doing both. And I guess I was trying to be like, okay, what can I do to combine those two, snow and action sports? Well,
Mhm.
there was free skiing.
There you go. There you
And
go.
at this point on, every single opportunity that I had, I was begging my parents to drop me off at the train station for me to go to the local snow park. And
Mhm.
thankfully, growing up in Switzerland, we have skiing all year long and
Yep.
access to snow
That's
park
nice.
all year long. So
Yep.
yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And yeah, like I think it was the environment is the most important thing I want to, say is that because of that environment of people being very accepting and
Mhm.
open-minded is why I was so drawn to this.
Right.
Uh, and obviously, cherry on top of the cake, you are, by yourself, and you don't have to think about other things, and that's where I really relate to you, to what you're saying. Once you put your helmet on, there's no
Yep.
other things you think about, right?
Right. Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
it really, I felt belong, I felt belong for the first time, so it was nice. I'm very
Yeah.
thankful to the skiing community for that one.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So I guess skiing also has a little bit of a softer landing compared to skateboarding as well, right?
It,
Or maybe
it,
not, because
no,
you are
actually,
flying quite high, huh?
actually, that's the thing, yeah. So like, a lot of people don't realize that snow parks are basically ice. It's all made out of ice,
Yep.
and ice is actually
Yeah.
harder than concrete. So
Oof.
it really
Yeah.
hurts. You can really get wrecked. It looks really soft and pretty, but you can get wrecked pretty good. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
but what I do want to say is power sport was always in the back of my mind. Growing up in Europe, it's just power sports is not really a thing. You don't really
Right.
have access to it. And I
Yeah.
remember most of the legends I was looking up to. like Dave Mara, he got into rally racing, right?
Hmm.
Ken
Yep.
Block was a snowboarder, and then he got into rally racing and dirt biking.
Yep.
Same with Pastrana. Pastrana was like a big motocross guy. All these guys were, those are people that I really look up to. Um, and I always thought like, dang, like what can I do to one day be able to have access to a certain form of power sport? And the answer is pretty easy. It's the United States of America.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
And
very
so
true. Uh
I
huh.
remember my first time I got to the United States for my first World Cup. Um, well, actually, that's not true. My girlfriend took me to the United States for the first time. I just turned 17, I think, and she was 18. I couldn't speak a word English at the time,
Oh
and
wow.
she took me to Manhattan and to Florida for like a 10 days vacation. I was blown away. Like we flew in. I remember she put me on the window seat because she knew I was really, really excited about the United States. She'd come me a lot,
Yep.
and she's like, look down, and I could see all these baseball field and football field and these big towers over New York. And I'm like, wow, like this is crazy. This is like the opposite of Europe, and
Yeah.
I was hooked. And thankfully, I was sent back the same year for my first World Cup in Colorado, and I saw some of my idols, and I was competing against them. And I remember the training day we pulled up to a snow park, just a parking lot, and I saw all these guys pulling up with full-size pickup trucks, snowmobiles in the back, and I'm like, man, like that's the kind of life I want. You know,
Yeah.
this is exactly what I was seeing and watching on the internet and all these
Uh-huh.
videos growing up, and I was like, wow, like they can do it. I want it too. You know.
Yeah. 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 That's great. That's great. Yeah. I mean, the first thing I bought when I moved here a year and a half ago was a pickup truck, so I can definitely relate to that. So
What truck did you get?
I only got a little Ford Ranger, so nothing,
Nice, nice. Did
nothing huge, but
you get a four-door long bed or what?
as it was a two-door long bed. I sold it a few weeks ago, but yeah,
What
I
you
can't.
get now?
I got a Tahoe now, Chevy Tahoe, so
That's pretty good. You can tow with it.
pretty good, pretty
Yeah.
good. But yeah, I
So
mean, that was one thing that I wanted to buy when I moved over here because back in the UK, pickup trucks aren't a thing at all. Everybody drives vans and stuff, so which are pretty boring. So
it's just I don't know. I understand why it would have make it's I didn't own a vehicle in Europe. I never had my first car I've ever bought. I was 24, and it's when we moved full time to the US, and it was a
uh-huh.
pickup. It was a Toyota Tacoma, but um,
Yep.
I just yeah, that was for me. There was absolutely no point to buy a car. It's way too expensive. You can't
Hmm.
park it anywhere. Switzerland is extremely stiff when it comes to that. And my family had a couple cars, so it was really like absolutely zero reason for me to get a car. And the
Right.
second I got here, I was like, there you go. Like I'm doing this thing I always wanted to do. I'm,
Pickup truck now.
oh yeah, bought it. Bought the Tacoma. It was cool, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna upgrade. I got a full size, so I'm on a Ford now. Love it, the F-150.
Yep.
So never
Awesome.
look back. There you go.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, talk to me a bit about your hearing loss then. How much hearing loss do you have?
So I was born severely deaf, and there's
Hmm.
different levels of deafness. Hence, that means my right ear is slightly better than my left. My right ear has about 30% of hearing,
Okay.
and my left ear has about 10%. Currently, my left ear is going through some problems. We're not sure why. The doctors are incapable of telling me what's going on. Um, Other than steroid treatment, there was not much we could do, and they're still hoping it will come back. But right now, I am definitely performing at less than 10%.
Wow.
Very, very scary. It happened about 6 weeks ago. My whole family came into town. That was my first time my siblings were with me in the U.S. to kind of see what my life looked like around here. And first day of the trip that they were here, I completely, fully lost all my natural hearing on my left side.
Wow.
Uh, it was terrifying. It was a terrifying experience. Not that I'm saying it's terrible to be deaf. I'm just saying like I was not used
Yep.
to this.
Yep.
I
Right.
always had a little bit of hearing that I could rely on.
Hmm.
And this time my left side was fully gone, and for no no reason. Um, and that
Right.
kind of made it really sketchy and scary. So the doctors were like, look, like the only thing we can tell you is that you have an enlarged vestibular aqueduct, which is a condition
Mhm.
I've had since I was born,
Yep.
but they can't explain why it happened.
Right.
And they said since it did happen on your left side, it could also happen randomly on your right side. And we don't know, we can't, there's no specific treatment for it. So that's where I really kind of didn't like any of this because it kind of indicated me that I'm super vulnerable and,
Mhm.
you know, bad things can happen any second. So
Yep. Yep.
if
Yep.
if I was to lose my right hearing as well, I'm probably 100% gonna have to take, get a cochlear implant,
Yep. Yep.
which I currently don't have, and I'm
Mhm.
getting away without it, and I'm
Yep.
very thankful for it. I got like the best hearing aids on Phonak and the best system,
Mhm.
like the Roger. I use the Roger all the time.
Yep.
Super helpful for anything that I really can't miss on, like an important meeting. I just finished university. My entire university experience with
Wow.
Roger and the hearing aids were extremely important.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, my hearing journey has been kind of all over the place. But yeah, basically
Okay.
severely deaf. Can't hear much, but
Right.
enough to get along. So
Right. Right. Does your hearing loss cause any kind of balance issues with you? Because I mean, I guess with skiing, balance is quite a key role, right?
yeah, it can't be. Look, it's a lot of people ask me this question, but basically, I never experienced vertigo until recently.
Okay.
And again, doctors can't explain me why. So this is where we are realizing that medicine is still very uncertain, right? They don't have solutions to everything. And
Yep. Yep.
so they're thinking it's all related to maybe me having those concussions that I've had in my
Hmm.
career and being a little bit older now.
Yep.
So I've had in the last 2 years a couple random vertigo episodes that lasted about 2 days. Uh, they're not fun,
Right.
and I would for sure be incapable of skiing at that point.
Hmm.
But um, those were, 48 hours long, happened
Right.
twice. And other than that, I can't predict when they come. Obviously, when it's happening, I can't do anything. But for the most part, like I never had other balance problem, not that I know of. So
Okay.
I felt like I was fully capable of performing on skis.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think that's something I don't have to worry about when I'm sitting down in a race car, which is quite nice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I couldn't imagine smacking your car on the wall. I just
Oh, it's not fun. It's not fun. It really isn't.
so I've never seen a NASCAR race. I
Okay.
have been. I was invited with my best friend to watch the Indy 500,
Uh-huh.
and that was super cool. Uh,
Yep.
we got to meet some of the best drivers. It was an amazing day. But what I didn't remember is how crazy they were because how fast they're going, and how
Hmm.
close to the wall they are.
Hmm.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for you guys. You guys are you guys are psychos.
It's crazy, but I mean, even like having said that, even though I race, at high speeds and that close to cars and that close to the wall, I can imagine skiing down the side of a mountain. Honestly, like that scares me to death. So just thinking about it.
Well,
So
the good news is, my body is my tool. So you have a whole like entire thing,
yep,
an
yep.
engine and other people around you. So I don't know. I guess we just get used to what we do.
Mhm, mhm. That's true. That's true. Yep.
So what about you, man? Like, how did you get into racing? I mean, you come from a place where NASCAR racing is not a thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, most people, asking that like where did the interest from NASCAR come from? And I don't really know, to be honest, because most people growing up in Europe, their goal is to start in say like go karts and work their way up, and eventually one day get to Formula One or something like that. And that was just never a goal of mine. I guess my mum being from the US kind of helps with my interest in the US in general, and then I guess one day I found NASCAR when I was about maybe 10 years old, and then I was like, that's cool, like what can I do to start racing now, like back in the UK? So then I just started racing back over there, and then I got caught the attention of a couple teams over here in the US. Came over here a couple times and ran with them, and then about a year and a half ago, I made the decision to move out here by myself at 21 years old. So it
Wow.
was a
Wow.
big move. So yeah.
And so when you say by yourself, like you really knew nobody and just went for it, pulled the trigger?
I knew one person, and that was
Okay.
it. So
Wow. And
you know,
where did you move to?
I live in Mooresville, North Carolina, which is just outside Charlotte.
Wow, that is a ballsy move, man.
So,
That's impressive.
um,
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying like most people that move to the US, that's not their first choice, you know?
right, yeah, but I mean, the reason I chose this area is because Charlotte and all the surrounding all the surrounding towns, and Mooresville specifically, is where most of the NASCAR drivers and the NASCAR teams are based. So,
There you
like,
go.
2 minutes that way, there's a couple NASCAR teams, and there's a couple drivers that live a few minutes away and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
There you
Yeah.
go. I like the sound of that. You know, it kind of reminds me of our story. As much so when I was living part-time in the US, uh, I was in Colorado Breckenridge, which at the time was the mecca of free skiing. And it was literally like a dream come true to be able to live there 6 months a year. We were
Hmm.
based out of Colorado, and then one day I came back home and I was really sick and tired of having to fly back to Europe all the time.
Right.
And obviously, like, you know, my fiance, she was living back home in Switzerland, and I said, look, like, I'm spending so much time on a plane. We barely get to spend any time together.
Yeah.
We need to move to the U.S. And she was
Hmm.
always super interested and super cool about it. She loved the U.S. as well. Her grandmother is from America, and
Uh
so
huh.
she doesn't have the dual citizenship though, but
Right.
she is Australian. So
Okay.
Australia has a treaty with the United States that offer them the possibility to come live and work in the U.S.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
she jumped the gun and applied for the visa, worked out, we moved out here, and when most people were like, "Oh, it makes sense. You moved to Denver or Colorado." I'm like, "Well, no, we actually didn't. We moved to Utah, which
Okay.
to a lot of people is also um, not their first choice, right?
Right. Yeah.
Salt
Yeah.
Lake, Salt Lake
Yeah.
City is not necessarily the first name you think of for
Right.
skiing and leading a professional athletic career. Well, turns out it really is. One of the best places to be an athlete because the international airport is in Salt Lake City. The ski resorts are about 20 minutes away from the airport, which is absolutely crazy. They have some of
Wow.
the best snow in the world I've ever seen. And the U.S. ski team facilities and the Olympics were held in 2002. I mean, they have all these amazing facilities right there.
Wow. Wow.
And you don't even have to live in a luxury ski town. Yes, Park City is in Utah. This is where most of the skiing is happening. However, you can also live in Salt Lake and drive within 10 minutes distance to where you need to go train and live in a city where it's much cheaper and have access to a lot of other resources,
Hmm.
and also lead a professional career, just like my
Yeah.
fiance is going through. So it was super appealing. It made total sense. Although explaining that to some Europeans, they're like, "So you guys are becoming a Mormon or what?" It's like, no, no, we're not. It's just straight up a really beautiful place. But yeah, keep thinking it's terrible. Don't come here.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess most people from Europe and stuff, when they move to the US, their first choice is LA or New York or
Exactly.
Miami or something. So
Maybe
it makes
Vegas.
yeah, and Vegas, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's it. They tend to forget all the amazing things that the United States have in between. It's crazy. It's such a
Hmm.
huge country. There's so much to see.
Hmm.
There's so much
Yep,
to see and do. Um,
yep, Yep.
I
I mean, that's probably why not many people from the US have actually ventured outside the country, because everything is here. If there's the beach, there's the mountains, there's
I
everything,
agree.
big
I agree.
cities. So, yeah.
I 100% agree. And speaking of that, I remember the first few times I came to the US, I was so curious, like, why do they not speak any other language? Like, they're not even, they learn 8 years of Spanish in high school and they can't even form one sentence. They can't even put one sentence together. And then, it's just, over time, it goes back to what you're saying. I just understood, well, these guys have access to everything. They can
Hmm.
even go to these absolute majestic islands called Hawaii, um,
Yep.
with
Yep.
perfect weather, perfect beaches, or they
Yep.
can go to the Rockies, which have like amazing world-class skiing, or they can go to world-class cities, New
Yep.
York and stuff. Like,
Yep.
okay, so they have everything,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's just hard for them to leave. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
why
Yep. I
why
agree.
leave and why learn another language when we can just do it all at home?
I
So
agree.
I understand. If I was born and raised in the U.S., I would have probably not know any other language. So
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I took my fiance, who's from here, back to the UK in December last year for Christmas, and
Uh-huh.
she's in her 20s, and it's her first time leaving the country. But
Wow.
it was awesome to show her all the history, all the old buildings and stuff like that they don't get over
Wow.
here. So I would say that's one thing I miss about living here is there's no 1,000-year-old buildings and castles and churches and stuff. But
I understand that, and
yeah.
like I grew up in a town where apparently it's the oldest, well-kept town in all of Europe, so we have like some really seriously old stuff.
Hmm.
But they didn't really do anything for me. Like as much as it's so pretty,
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, cool, it's very pretty, but like, what do you want me to do? Like just like there's no AC, there's no heater, it's cold or hot, or like it's so uncomfortable. I don't know. It's like I was not into it. I don't know. I was never into it, dude. Like I
Yeah.
remember that. I was watching all these like coming back to all these movies about my idols, and it was all happening in the U.S. and
Hmm.
they were
Hmm.
driving these cool cars. They were living in these big homes. They had access to everything that they needed. And back home, it was just not like that. It was just,
Right. Yeah.
you're that's what we had, and you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
really do anything really cool. And it was frustrating. I really loved it. It was, I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm very proud to where I'm from.
Hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
definitely limiting. There's,
Right.
if you have dreams, you can't like it's not always a possibility out there.
Right.
It's a
Right.
different lifestyle. They can if you want to be a cook, yeah, like you're gonna be the best chef ever in Europe, that's for sure.
Hmm.
But if you
Hmm.
want to be an athlete, that's debatable, man. Like as much as America has a lot of problems, um, one thing they do pretty well is sport-wise, they're really good with
That's
that.
right.
Like they
Sports. Yep.
they're pretty good with that. And I remember I was part of the Swiss Olympic Sports School, so that's like a high school for the best athletes of your country.
Okay.
And I was into this program, which was amazing. Very thankful for that. The director, she was always telling us, listen, like once you graduate high school here in Switzerland, I kind of have bad news for you guys. Like, what's up? It's like, well, if you want to go pro, you can, but you will not get an education. Like, well, how? Like, why is that? She's like, well, no university in Switzerland will offer the possibility for you to lead a professional athletic career while studying. They have zero
Well,
flexibility. They do not offer
okay.
any athletic programs. They will not let you, go on a trip for a competition or training. It just doesn't happen. Like the students go to school from Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., 5 p.m., if
Yep.
not longer. And that's
Hmm.
it. If you miss out a class, you can literally like you will fail. If you miss out an exam, you will fail. Like you're gonna have you cannot do this. So she was
Yeah.
telling
Yeah.
us if you want an education and still lead a professional athletic career, you probably gonna have to look elsewhere, aka the U.S.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's what one thing America does super well. They're able
Hmm.
to offer that. They're able to be flexible. Let us retake exams at a later time or earlier. They're willing to work with you, the teachers, in
Yep.
making sure that you catch all your material. And I don't know, it's just
Yep.
it's it's kind of grateful for Europe. Really am. Love my
Mm-hmm.
family.
Yep.
But for what I wanted to do here,
Yep.
I
I
had to be here.
completely relate. Yep. Completely. Because, for me, with wanting to get to the top level in NASCAR, I'm never going to do it living back in the UK. So, yeah.
It's
So,
really interesting, right? Like, and the craziest part is some of the greatest to ever do it at many, many, many sports,
hmm
they're not necessarily Americans. But there's one thing I noticed is a lot of them at some point had to be in the US.
Yeah.
It's super strange. Like I'm not
hmm
saying they all come here, but a lot of people do, especially in power sport, that's for sure. I mean, if you want to be the best, like the best uh, motocross or supercross racing, it's all happening in the U.S. Everything that's professional and high league is here. It's nowhere else. And the same with so many different type of racing, it's here.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
which is always, I always found so curious, despite the lack of room, circuit, and it's obviously all the environmental reasons, racing is frowned upon in Europe, but they cherish Formula One so much. That's just that's just an
That's true.
absolute mystery to me. I will
That's true.
never be able to understand that.
Yeah. No idea. I don't know. Yeah.
Did you grow up riding racing go-karts?
I didn't actually. The first time I drove anything was a full size car, and that was the very first thing I raced. So I never did a race in a
Ah,
small go kart or anything. My first ever race was in a full size car. So
wow.
not, I wouldn't say many people can say that. So
No, no, I'm sure that's really cool. So what kind of car was it?
I mean, it was just like I mean, even I say full size car, it was still like a smaller hatchback type of
Oh, I
car,
see.
but
I see.
compared to a go kart, it's a lot bigger. So,
Well,
so
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I couldn't. I love racing go-karts, but just, a full-size car, man, it sounds
mhm,
expensive.
yeah, it is.
So,
Oh yeah, yep, yep. So let's get back to the the hearing loss. Talk to me a bit about why, when you were growing up, why did you feel like you had to hide your hearing loss from people? What was it, a bullying thing in school? Was it more of a stigma thing, and worried about what people would think of you for wearing hearing aids, and or not feeling like you could fit in?
look, I think to be honest, I think it is a complete lack of education in our society, especially at the
hmm
time. It's slightly getting better, but it
Yeah.
still is miles to go, especially back home. I don't know about the UK, but I did find it really alarming how poorly designed our government is when it comes to, anything that's related to disabilities.
hmm
Um, to give
Yeah.
you an example, I cannot go to the movie theater in Switzerland with caption in my own native tongue. Like they don't even offer that service. I can't even get those like caption box. It's
Yeah.
uh it's well 2023. Like what the
hmm
frick? Like what is that even like how can I feel myself included? Like I
Yeah.
we were talking about that with some friends out here is I literally cannot remember one time when I went to the movie theater back home where I understood what was going on at the movie theater. My dad would always sit next to me and he would have to whisper, which didn't work because I can't hear any whispering. But
Right.
he was always trying
Right.
to like make sure I could keep up with the story, but I never did. I never did. They had to retell me the whole movie after the movie was done, and it's disastrous. And it's still the same thing to this day in 2023. So long story short, I think it really comes down to the lack of education and opportunities for people with disabilities to grow in
Yep.
Europe, and that backfires, man. It really does, and it starts at such a young age, especially when you're, between 8 to 11 years old. You don't understand the consequences of what you're saying and what you're doing,
hmm
and
hmm
it was brutal, man. I mean,
Yep.
I
Yep.
just looked different because I had the biggest, bluest hearing aids on the market. Blue is my favorite color. So I just had these like big, big blue hearing aids around my ear, and my ear would pop out. And all
Yep.
the kids like, what do you have in your ear? Like, what is this thing? Oh, we're
Yeah.
gonna call you satellite. And they gave me all kind of nicknames, and it was really awful.
Oh
Like
man.
I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't enjoy it at all. And I remember
I mean,
the
it's
yeah
it's good that we can laugh about it now, but
yeah
even having said that, it's still a big issue today, and
for sure.
still a lot of kids growing up today, still have that stigma around wearing hearing aids,
Oh,
so
they
it,
really do, and they really do. I think it's getting better in certain places. Um, I keep referring back to Switzerland because this was my experience. I grew up there. It wasn't it was really unhealthy. Like I just never felt belong.
yep.
And it's part of the reason why I wanted to leave so bad. I remember I kept looking out, like where can I go where I feel accepted. So
Hmm.
skiing, I felt accepted.
Yep.
I told you
Yep.
a story about action sport. I felt accepted in action sport. I wasn't judged, and I didn't have any communication issues. So it kind of like made sense why I fell into that. And then um, action sport all happened in U.S. So I had to leave. It's like I need to get out of there. So I did. I couldn't stay there. I just didn't
Yep.
feel. I never felt like I belonged. It was really
Yep.
it's not a good experience, and I wouldn't wish that to anybody else. But I just know
Right.
for a fact to this day it's still the same problem. It's still an issue.
Hmm.
As much as we hear a lot of progress happening, I would I unfortunately have to admit the progress is I don't think it's really happening back home in Europe. I think I see it here. I joined a university here, and that was my first time in my education uh, years or career. It's not a career,
Career. Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
yeah. 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 Career.
in my education where I simply I had access to so many amazing tools to be
Yep.
successful. So I remember the first week I was in the university here in Utah. I had no idea about this. I just was gonna do like what I always did, just kind of struggle through and hopefully like pass and learn on the side. Well, the first week I got there, they're like, "Hey, we see you wear hearing aids. Like, are you hard of hearing?" And I said, "Yes." And they're like, "Did you sign up with the disability center?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." They said, "What we just did is illegal, but it looks like you didn't know you had access to all these tools." What they meant by illegal is like nobody's allowed to ask you if you have a disability. So I was kind of blown away by that. But anyway, so I went to the disability center, and she said, "Look, you have access to a lot of things. First one, we'll, we'll pay and assign you a note taker to every single class you sign up to." My mind was blown. Like, what? Like, someone is going to take notes for me? That's incredible because it's super
Wow.
hard for me to take my own notes. I can't do it. It's super hard for me
Yeah.
to keep up in a
Yeah.
classroom, write down what the teacher says, look at
Hmm.
my notes while he speaks. I can't do that. So the fact that I had access to just this was incredible. Number
Hmm.
two, at every exams, I was allowed 150% of the time. And I was looking at the lady. I'm like, well, hold on. Like, I'm not slow. And she said, no. It's not about you being like mentally slow. It had nothing to do with that. It's just the reason we give 150% of the time to
Uh-huh.
people with hearing issues is basically if you have a question during an exam, we know that you cannot understand the whispering from the teacher because you can't be too loud in the
Hmm.
classroom. You're allowed to step out of the classroom with the teacher, and they'll tell you um, while being able to fully speak to you and make sure you understand the answer to your question. So it takes a bit longer than the other peers. Hence, that's why we give you 150% of the time. So that was number two. Number three is we offer live captioning services.
Okay.
So I would
Yep.
open my iPad or MacBook and go on Skype, and I had professionals listening to my teacher and write it all down. So I had three things, if not more, other tools to make sure I was going to be successful.
Wow.
These things I was never exposed to like these amazing opportunities before,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it kind of showed me that there's still a lot of countries that are way behind on that.
Hmm.
It blew me away, and guess what?
Yeah.
My entire journey at university was super smooth.
Hmm. Yeah, that's incredible. That's
It
great.
it was
Yeah,
amazing. I
yeah,
loved
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I so so
yeah.
yeah, there was that, and the fact that I just could sit down in a movie theater here and have access to these caption
Hmm.
boxes was life
Yep,
changing.
yep.
Now, one of my favorite activities to do is go to the movie theater,
Go to movies, yeah, yeah, because you can actually, yeah, go and watch them and
follow and keep up.
have fun.
So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you that some countries are behind on their education and just the kind of social awareness of hearing loss. Like, I'd I have my own story where uh, just it was about a year after I got my first set of hearing aids. I was sat in class in high school, and the teacher told me to take them out because they were distracting other students. And still to this day, I don't know why he took that approach. Like
it's
it just
absurd. I'm
yep.
genuinely sorry that it happened to you. I wish I could go back in time with you and slap the shit out of the teacher. This guy's got some trouble. I mean, this is not okay. Like
It's not
how is
no.
that even like it's crazy. People are crazy, dude. It's
Yep, yep, yeah,
that's
and
one thing that's one thing my parents did really well. They always told people around them that were doubtful of me. They're like, look, try to cover your ears for an entire day and go on with everything that you do
uh,
successfully.
yep,
If you
yep,
can do that, if you can successfully do that, then you can talk shit on my son. If you
hmm,
can't, not happening.
right,
And I
right,
guarantee you will fail. So they were like, look, this kid is trying to make it happen. You cannot
hmm,
judge him. So
right,
that was cool.
yep,
That was
yep.
really cool.
Yeah, 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 that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, the sad thing about that was, I was just a 13-year-old. Like, I wasn't gonna,
Yeah,
stand up to the teacher and tell him that what he did was wrong because I was just doing what the teacher was telling me to do.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, the other sad thing was that I then stopped wearing my hearing aids for the next maybe 7 years. Yeah, 7 years until I was 20, just because I was just worried about wearing them and, scared about what I would, look like wearing them. So
And also,
yeah,
also, I'm sure you got used to not wearing them. It's
I
just,
did.
oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah. And then when I started wearing them again, I was like, wow, I missed out on a lot. you
You
know.
did.
So yeah.
You
So
did. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm so sorry about that, man. I mean, this is
yeah, no
this is the
problem.
kind of experience that really showcases the lack of education and understanding to what it means to be hard of hearing and deaf.
Hmm. Yep,
There's
yep.
absolutely no limits for us. I mean, look, I am looking into maybe becoming a pilot,
Oh
fly
wow,
airplanes, and so
wow,
I remember 6 weeks ago I had the green lights to start flying planes, and
wow.
at the same time I lost my left hearing completely, and I freaked out. I freaked out so much. I thought, wow, I think this might be the first time in my life where I'm actually going to be limited due to my hearing for something. Well,
Wow. Yeah.
well, guess what? I was super wrong because
Wow.
even if I lose my hearing completely, I could get cochlear implant, and I'm still allowed to fly commercially with cochlear implant.
Wow. That's
So
great. Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? We're not limited, and if
No, no, not at all.
you
Not
just
at all.
equip yourself with the right tool and educate
Yeah.
people around you, and you can make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So would wearing a cochlear have any effect on your skiing as well? Like, would there be issues with wearing a helmet with that? Or
Well, no, because at the end of the day, like I can just dig out some small holes to make sure that the
mhm.
cochlea would fit in. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, it's like small adjustment, but in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
thankful that there is a solution.
Yep.
Uh, and also like I will probably gonna, if it ever happens, knock on wood, um, if it ever happens, then I'm just gonna look up to other people that are fully deaf, profoundly deaf, sorry, and help. I'll ask him to help me kind of
Yep.
teach me how to go along this
Yep.
journey. And I've been told a lot of people don't even get cochlear implant. I will have to because I want to fly planes. Um,
Right. Right.
but I don't want to have to only rely on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm not too concerned about that. And I think like really like it won't change me. I actually had to make a decision a few weeks ago because the doctor was like, well, look, like you lost your hearing on your left side. We don't know if it's going to come back. It actually has a little, which is good, but it hasn't come back completely. But they're like, we don't know if it's going to come back. Um, our best advice to you, because we don't know what exactly was causing any of this, is you should probably stop doing any action sport because it's basically exposing you to hitting your head, and they think that hitting my head might cause this. And so it's like, okay, I hear you, I do, right?
Uh-huh.
I understand and I appreciate the concern. So for 1 week, I took a step back and I
Uh-huh.
was thinking about this a lot. And I talked about it with my fiance, my best friends, my
Yeah.
mentors, all the people around me. And I came to the conclusion that I just refuse to let anything stop me from
Hmm.
becoming who I am.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
just who I am. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm happy. This is what makes me happy. I mean,
Hmm.
I just cannot imagine a life without having the fun that I have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like what's what's a life
Uh-huh.
worth living? At the end of the day, it's like for me, a life worth living is full of action, adrenaline,
Hmm.
fun,
Hmm.
camaraderie with the people
Yeah.
that surrounding in those community.
Hmm.
So I just yeah,
Zero, zero limitations.
yep,
That's a great mindset to have. Yeah, for sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
So um, tell me about you. Like you're here. Like how much? Like how are you? Like how much hearing loss do you have?
Not quite as much as you. I have about 30%, 35% across both ears. Like that's 35% loss. So
Right,
I still
right.
have about 70% of my hearing.
Good, good.
Yeah. So I was born with perforations in my eardrums, so holes in my eardrums which never healed over. So I have to be super careful about getting moisture and water in
Okay.
my ears because ear infections come super easily. You know,
Oh
so
dear,
so
oh
like
dear.
so if I want to go swimming, I have to be super careful and either not put my head underwater or wear plugs. But then if I'm wearing plugs, then I can't hear anyone. So it's kind of it's that kind of sucks, I would say. But it. I'm glad that I'm really glad that I actually do have hearing loss because it's you know I feel like it's made me a lot more successful and passionate to want to make my racing career work and make my racing career successful because it's just I don't know. There's just something about racing where I can just throw my helmet on and not have to worry, and that's all I'm plugged into. So
I love it. I love
yeah,
it. So
yeah,
I got a question about that.
okay.
You putting your big helmet on, right? I'm
Hmm.
well aware those uh, racing helmets can
Yeah.
be super hot. So if you're sweating in there, what's your solution against that moisture in your ear?
Um, to dry them out as quick as possible, really.
Okay,
Honestly,
okay, yeah,
I actually haven't had an issue yet
good, good,
with moisture from sweats. It's mainly been from water, like
good,
showering or swimming or something like that. So
good.
but yeah, I mean, we wear ear earbuds, which is how we communicate with the
Right.
crew and the team and stuff like that. So
Hmm. Cool.
but then that brings along its own issues because I need the technology that's in a hearing aid where I can adjust it to my own frequencies for it to really work properly. Because if I'm just wearing regular earbuds, all levels, all frequencies are just maxed out for me to be able to hear, and then sometimes I miss things as well. So that's what I'm trying to work on with a hearing aid company is to put the technology from a hearing aid inside a racing earbud,
Cool.
and so that's what we're trying to work on right now.
So, how important is hearing for you when you're racing?
Um, I would say I use my visual cues a lot. A lot more. I would definitely rely on them and things like
Okay.
feel, like what I'm feeling in the car, and I can feel vibrations from cars next to me and stuff, so I can judge how close or how far away they
Right.
are to me and stuff. So that was going to be a question for you: is how much do you rely on your visual cues when skiing as well?
A
Because
lot, man. I mean, yeah, yeah. Like basically, the my new short film, we literally go through that step by step. You
hmm
know, it was such an amazing journey to be able to have that opportunity. Phonak and I partnered up to come out with a
yep,
story, and
yep, yep.
um, basically, I have to feel the wind with my chest. It's
Oh wow.
extremely important because if we misjudge the speed coming off a jump, I mean, I shall remind you the jump we're jumping are about like 100 feet long and we're about 80 feet up in the air. So they're really big jumps and they have
hmm
high consequences. You can die or break your neck. Like it's
Yep,
no joke. There's
yep.
no joke about this, so you cannot
Yep.
misjudge your speed. If you go too fast, it's gonna hurt a lot. If you go too short, it's gonna hurt a lot.
hmm
And so I have two things. So I have to really feel the wind on my chest when I'm skiing down to the jump. Because when we're pushing the jump, we're about 60 miles per hour, which is really, really fast.
hmm
Um,
Yeah,
to be on these little tube planks. So we go really fast on them. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
the second thing is they put little flags on the top of the jumps and on the knuckle, which is near the landing. There's big flags on the knuckle and there's small flags on the top of the jump. And
Okay.
depending where the flag is going, then I'll know like how much wind there is and which direction it's going. So yeah, those are the two things that I really need to pay attention to at all time. I
hmm
just gotten used to it. The other skiers definitely have one more steps is to be able to hear the wind. I
Right.
don't really hear it. I don't
Yeah.
really hear it. It's very inconsistent. Sometimes the microphone picks it up and it's super loud, and sometimes it doesn't pick up and I don't hear it at all. So I can't rely on that. Even though the microphone screams at me there's wind, it might just be the speed that I'm going down to. So it's just not a good indicator. It's really about how much wind is hitting my chest and how much wind there is on the flag.
Yeah, yeah. So
So.
does not being able to hear as well as other skiers give you more like focus and clarity on what you're actually doing compared to others? Would you say that?
Sure, sure. I mean, I'm definitely one of the guys that pay way more attention to how much speed I'm taking.
hmm
Everyone else kind of like goes with the flow, and
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and I do that too. Of course, like I've gotten to, when you are a professional at this point, you know what you're doing. But
hmm
I definitely am the guy that takes a couple extra steps and a couple extra minutes before I drop in to make sure that the flags are going to the right way and I'm not messing it up, right? I just, I guess I was kind of always the safer guy. Um, a lot of people keep asking me, like, man, like you've had a lot of, like, how many injuries did you have? Well, I did have a lot of injuries, but in comparison to uh, my other, the competitors, my number is quite low actually. Like,
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I
So,
tore my, I tore my ACL, broke my
oof,
collarbone, uh,
oof.
broke my foot, I broke my femur. Like a lot of things happened, but it's still like absolutely nothing. I mean, most of the other athletes I compete with, they go through far more, terrible injuries, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was paying way more attention to what's going on.
hmm hmm Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you could almost say that hearing loss actually gives you an edge over other people then.
Sure, yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I
absolutely.
mean,
Yeah, that's
one of the
awesome.
one of the person I look up to the most. Her name is Ashley Filek. I don't know if you've ever heard of her.
Yep.
She's
hmm
actually profoundly deaf, right? She was on Red Bull for I don't know how many years, and she's a dirt bike racer,
Yep.
and
Yep. Yep.
probably the best woman to race a dirt bike ever.
hmm hmm
And she's profoundly deaf.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
it's when people ask her like, "How did you do like to race?" and she's like, "Well, I felt the engine in between my legs,
hmm
and
hmm
I just didn't look back. Like I just kept going.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
there she was. She was the best to
Yeah.
ever do it. And there's another the other person I really look up to is Derek Coleman. Um, he won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks back in
hmm
2016, I believe, and
Yep.
He's not profoundly deaf. He's like me, severely deaf, and
Mhm.
for him it was like, well, he had to learn the strategy book by heart because
Mhm.
he could not rely on what his teammates were screaming at him on the field while the game was happening. It's way too fast, he can't hear it. But if one of his teammates would play slightly differently, he would know exactly what strategy they were using. So he
Wow.
didn't even need to listen to anything. All he was doing
Okay.
was looking around him, and
Right.
he would know immediately that they just changed the strategy. It was incredible.
Yeah. 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 That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
so it
So
does
you're
give you an edge.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, kids growing up today who feel like their hearing loss is holding you back, you can actually say, no, it's actually
No.
giving you an edge, and yeah.
It can, well, I agree, but you have to work for it, right? Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
you
Yeah. For
have to
sure.
work for it. It's
Yeah.
not going to give you an edge by itself. Like, you definitely you need to find the solution to the problem. When there's a problem, there's
Mhm.
always a solution. And
Mhm.
I think the fact that we are looking for other solutions gives us an edge, is what I think.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
So,
That's true. Yeah, can agree more. Yeah.
yeah.
So your documentary that you did with Phonak is awesome, by the way, and
Thank you.
the
I appreciate
title.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and anybody watching this should definitely go and check it out. But the title is "What It's Like." Where did that name come from?
So, um, my first documentary that came out about, I think it was 2018 when it came out. It was about like what it was like to grow up hard of hearing,
Mhm.
and the name
Okay.
of that documentary is called Sound of Silence.
Okay.
And so we're, strictly talking about growing up as a deaf kid,
Mhm.
and all the terrible story that happened at school and at, my first job and stuff like that, and what
Yeah.
skiing did to me, how skiing saved me. And then I approached Phonak and we kind of talked about doing this new project where I wanted to really go into details of what it's like to hear what I hear throughout my skiing. Because a lot of people after my first documentary come up to me like, okay, cool, like you explained us, the problem of society around your hearing loss, but what do you exactly hear? Because you still hear something. You're not profoundly deaf. Like, you know what? That's a very good question. A lot of
Mhm.
people ask me that. It shows me that there is a huge lack of education about that subject because you and me are deaf. Although the word deaf is telling us, telling people they think we can't hear a sound. No, that's not how this works, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
basically this movie was to really go in depth into, okay, look, like this guy still hears some sound, not all of it, and he functions a bit differently. Hence the title, What It's Like,
Yeah.
especially we wanted to link with the first documentary called Sound of Silence, What
Mhm.
It's Like. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. That's awesome.
Like,
Yeah. So, I guess to wrap things up here, then, this has been awesome, by the way. This has been great. To the kids growing up today with hearing loss, or kids that are fully deaf, what would you say to them if they're feeling like you know their situation is holding them back? They feel like they're not going to be able to chase their dreams. What would you say to them to show them that yes, you can? It
right.
might take a little extra work to get there, but it's still possible.
Man, life would be boring if everyone was the same. I just
Yep. Yep.
I just cannot imagine a planet where everyone looks the same, everyone
Uh-huh.
likes the same color, everyone hears the same, see the same. Dude, it would be
Yep.
terrible. Imagine going to a
Uh-huh.
birthday party, everyone likes the same cake and you, everyone has the same gift, everyone has the same clothes, everyone likes the same movie. What is that? You know, being unique is amazing. Being
Yep.
different is
Mhm.
awesome. It's just,
Mhm.
it's so much cooler. You'll
Yeah.
have so much more to offer, so many more stories to tell.
Yep.
And if you ever are doubtful of having a girlfriend, a boyfriend, or whatever you're into one day, that is not, you actually have a big advantage. You will have so many more stories to tell, so many more amazing things to share with them. You'll be so much more interesting to interact with. It's
Mhm.
just, it's, life is so much more beautiful being unique. I'm telling you,
Absolutely. Yep.
there's nothing else that you can do. Just continue to be yourself. Don't let other people tell you what to do.
Hmm.
You just there's no limits. Like there really isn't. I mean, I would really not be surprised if anytime soon we're gonna see a president that's deaf or blind or something. Because like
Yeah.
it's really those
Yeah.
are not real limitations
Right.
anymore.
Yep. Yep. Just go and chase your dreams. Doesn't matter what happens along the way. Just go and chase them. Yep.
Exactly. And you
Absolutely.
know, if your dream is to become a plumber or an electrician, then dude, like this is also super
Yeah.
amazing. There's
Yeah.
absolutely like dream doesn't have to be all shiny and everything. It can be
Right. Something
anything.
massive. It can be something as simple as
Yep.
being a plumber, being a chef,
Yeah.
anything.
And and, and guess what? Plumbers and chefs are probably smarter than you and me, dude.
Probably,
You
probably,
know, we're,
yeah.
we're chasing the dream, but it's definitely difficult, man.
Uh-huh.
It's difficult,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I'm just throwing a stupid car around the track, and
So I think we understand each other on that one. Definitely no regret for sport, no regret, but dang, this is
Yep.
a tough one. Sometime I wish I picked golf in a F1, you know. So
All right,
anyway,
man. Well, this was
uh,
awesome. Yeah,
I had
thanks so much for coming on.
I just have one more thing to say. I appreciate what you're
Okay.
doing, Keenan. I think it's amazing. I
Thank
really
you very much.
wish a lot of success for you too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
I would love to hang out more with you in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get you out to a race this year or something for sure.
Cool. Yeah.
Maybe even try and take you for some laps around the track as well.
Cool. Hell yeah,
That'd be
dude.
cool.
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
All
All
right.
right, dude.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks very much. Have a good
Nice to
one.
meet you. Yeah, you too.
You too. Bye bye.